Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, I'm going to react to the top 10 documentaries that ruined people's lives. Now, I can't imagine how a documentary would ruin your life. Maybe, actually, I'm guessing one of these documentaries is going to be Prince Andrew, the documentary he did with Channel 4 here in the UK, where he said, because he was accused of being connected with Epstein and all of that stuff, and he said that, he doesn't sweat, about how he remembers exactly where he was like 30 years ago on the night he was accused of doing that thing. He said he was in like a pizza place. It was just a disaster. It was a disaster. I'm guessing that's going to be here. Maybe people incriminate themselves as well. Like they basically put themselves in the middle of like a crime investigation, perhaps. It's going to be quite interesting to see how they kind of wreck themselves, to be fair. By the way, guys, if you enjoyed these videos, check out the Patreon. Loads of exclusive content, full-length movie reactions as well. And like the videos and subscribe to the channel, guys. It really does help the channel out. Let's do it.
This is going to be a thing. This is going to be a thing that people bother me about, and that's going to make my life harder.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 documentaries that ruined people's lives.
The downside of giving an interview is that the interviewer will take what I've said to make me look as bad as possible.
For this list, we'll be looking at the most noteworthy documentary films and series that had a strongly negative impact on certain affiliated individuals. What other documentaries inspired an unfortunate change in people's lives? Give us your take in the comments. Number 10, Tiger King. Carol Baskin,
Yes.
eccentric former zookeeper Joe Exotic, claims that the hit Netflix docuseries Tiger King ruined his life.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another fun episode of A Day in My Life, here on JoeExoticTV.com.
That's saying a lot.
I need to watch this. I only saw little clips here and there. It came out, around 2020? It was everywhere. Everyone was talking about it. I just didn't get around to seeing it.
Considering he was already in prison when the show premiered. It may be less debatable to argue that the documentary instead damaged the reputation of his arch nemesis, Carol Baskin.
Hi, I'm Carol Baskin, and I'm the founder and CEO of Big Cat Rescue.
Tiger King seemingly painted the animal rights activist as Exotic's even matching ego, if not animal mistreatment. The docuseries was also criticized for overexposing the theory that Baskin had a hand in her ex-husband Don Lewis's disappearance.
There's a lot of stories about Carol having some finger in it, but nobody can prove it.
This particularly inspired devastating harassment online. Though her raised profile has also promoted her activism, Baskin feels betrayed by Netflix's depiction, and that too many people have made up their minds on the mystery of Lewis's fate.
The vast majority of the calls and social posts and emails that I was getting were so hateful. I couldn't leave my phone on because I couldn't sleep. It was just constantly ringing.
Number 9, the case.
But I mean, I'm sure when Netflix, first of all, Netflix, they paid her and the Tiger King, Joe Exotic, probably very, very well, A. B, I'm sure Netflix showed them the episodes before, they aired them. I think that's quite normal. So for her to complain about how she was depicted on the show, just based on the public reaction, I don't think that's Netflix's fault, because Netflix would have shown her the show before they aired it.
Case of JonBenet Ramsey, Burke Ramsey. The unsolved murder of child beauty queen JonBenet Ramsey has been followed by scandal ever since 1996.
Soon, pictures of this little girl became public, igniting a media frenzy, and the eyes of the world focused on this shocking case.
As if the loss and media circus weren't traumatizing enough, the Ramsey family has long dealt with theories that they were the culprits. All 3 members were eventually cleared by DNA evidence in 2008. Nonetheless, the 2016 miniseries The Case of JonBenet Ramsey still argued that the victim's older brother Burke was responsible.
He seems to have gone into sort of playful mode, and the tone of it is completely off.
His sister disappears in the middle of the night. She ends up dead in the basement, and he doesn't
Worry about himself or worry that they may come back for him.
Burke promptly filed a defamation suit against CBS and some of the show's participants. Following an out-of-court settlement, the older Ramsey returned to a private life. Still, with many maintaining that JonBenet was killed by Burke, he has undoubtedly found his reputation tarnished by the claims of this docuseries.
I think early on, we discussed the lack of the family actually getting involved with the investigation to begin with. And that is so atypical of what I see in a case where someone close to you has passed away. You'll do whatever you can to get the case resolved.
Number 8, The King of Kong, A Fistful of Quarters, Billy Mitchell. Seth Gordon's documentary on the feud for Donkey Kong conquest won high scores with audiences. Of course, the public attention it revived for record holder
Donkey Kong champion.
Billy Mitchell backfired.
Competitive gaming, when you want to attach your name to a world record, when you want your name written into history, you have to pay the price.
The King of Kong was among the sources investigated by specialists to conclude that Mitchell's scoring track record was partially attained with emulation software. This provided an undue advantage, allowing anyone to play outside of arcade machines.
He was a guy that pushed for live scores all the time. And now here I am at Fun Spot, busting my ass.
This is crazy. So this is basically like esports, but the early days. You know, esports is huge now. I think esports is bigger, or the gaming industry, I think, is bigger than Hollywood and the music industry combined. But this is like the very start of that.
To get a live score, and he just submits tape scores now.
Mitchell's records were removed from databases, and the gaming community ostracized him. In a defamation suit against his accusers, he even claimed that his doctor refused to treat his stress-related health issues. Although some of his records have since been reinstated, the King of Kong helped bring down the gamer royalty. Mitchell.
Why would his doctor refuse to help him? Like, what does his doctor have to do with it?
Built an entrepreneurial brand on.
I'm just some no-name guy from Washington. Billy's trying to live up to this image of being the greatest ever, and so he's afraid that if he loses, that's going to tarnish him.
Number 7, Making a Murderer, Ken Kratz. As district attorney for Calumet County, Wisconsin, Ken Kratz landed the famous murder convictions of Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey in 2007.
We're obviously happy with the results. We believe that a just result was reached in this trial.
Controversy that these may have been wrongful convictions eventually went global with the release of the Netflix docuseries Making a Murderer.
Don't let Netflix tell you what to think!
Kratz's glory was short-lived anyway, as a harassment scandal had cost him his office in 2010. But after the documentary's examination of possible judicial impropriety, Kratz faced death threats and a barrage of negative Yelp reviews. He has since lost his law license. Kratz continues to grant public interviews and has been working on a book to dispute the show's supposedly flimsy evidence.
This wasn't a documentary at all. This was a defense piece. It was generated by and for Stephen Avery, by his defense team.
The court of public opinion has nonetheless not been kind to him. Number 6, Going Clear.
I always find it so shocking and like weird when people that are meant to uphold the law, like they break it. Like him, you know, he got done for harassment. It's like, mate, like you're meant to be like setting the standard. Like, what are you doing harassing people? I wonder what happened.
Clear, Scientology and the Prison of Belief, former Church of Scientology members. Alex Gibney's documentary on the mysterious Church of Scientology was praised by general audiences, but received a very different reaction from Scientologists.
You know, why did they go into it in the first place? I was interested in intelligent and skeptical people who are drawn into a belief system and wind up acting on those beliefs in ways they never thought they would.
Gibney has expressed remorse that many people who worked on Going Clear subsequently suffered retaliation from church officials.
They take enemies very seriously.
This comes right out of Hubbard's own policies from the 60s. He's saying we never defend, we always attack, and they have followed it ever since. They call it fair game, and anybody who criticizes Scientology is fair game.
Former members whose interviews exposed the church's history and controversial practices got it the worst. Filmmaker Paul Haggis, journalist Tony Ortega, and others reported being surveilled. A private investigator also confessed to being hired to hack into several email accounts. These all seem to be consistent with the disturbing stories exposed throughout the documentary.
Again and again, while reporting this story, we met many former members who described Scientology as a dangerous and deeply paranoid organization.
For all the importance of Going Clear in religious debate, its effects extended far beyond the current Scientology congregation. Number 5, the show up.
I find Scientology so fascinating because isn't it literally based on a novel, a science fiction novel written in the 50s or 60s by L. Ron Hubbard? Like it's a storybook. Like, you know, not to say that it's not a religion or whatever, you know, I'm not trying to disparage it, but it's like taking 50 Shades of Grey, like the novel 50 Shades of Grey, and a religion grows out of it, you know, when churches are built around it, it's like, isn't that like do you know what I mean?
About the show, Kaveh Zahedi. Arguably the most daring project from meta filmmaker Kaveh Zahedi was the show about the show, in which each episode documented the making of the previous episode.
What's the show?
This show.
What show?
This show.
I don't understand when you say this show.
This show, like the show about the show.
Released online and on Brooklyn Cable Access, the niche program turned out to be more dramatic than anyone expected. The intrusive and candid production imploded Zahedi's already rocky marriage, plus a subsequent romance.
Because she keeps doing this. She keeps saying,
I want to break up and I want you to move out.
and then she changes her mind.
I want to try and make it work.
And then she says it again.
I want to break up and I want you to move out.
And then she changes her mind.
He claims that his whole personal life has been destroyed by its own documentation. The show about the show wound up being a reality show that truly lives up to the genre's name. Zahedi does not regret the project, however.
And I'm thinking, why the did he break the tape? I could have used that in the show.
In fact, he's trying to keep it going totally independently, although he'll be the first to admit that it upended his whole world.
Wow.
Number 4, Overnight.
I mean, that just seemed really strange to me. I didn't quite understand the concept of that. So he was on a show, and they made a show about the show, but the show was his life. Someone explain that to me in the comments, please.
Troy Duffy. Despite the very limited release of the Boondock Saints, writer-director Troy Duffy became a cult sensation.
I do believe the Messiahs finally got the point.
Aye. Fans got to go behind the scenes with his filmmaking and music breakout in the documentary Overnight. This showcased Duffy as an undeniable talent, but whose contentious behavior eventually led to his downfall.
You tell them I'm in CAA in 6 months if they don't start moving on this shit.
Okay, my suggestion to you is that it's okay for you to say you're upset. It's not okay for you to say you're considering leaving.
All right, then say I'm upset.
That's fine.
His antagonism towards his veteran producers ultimately led to Miramax dropping his movie, and Harvey Weinstein having him blacklisted. Sure, Overnight is a record of Duffy
Weinstein had him blacklisted, and now look at where Weinstein is.
Destroying his own life, but he claims the documentary showed his inexcusable behavior out of context. It certainly cost him the potential salvation of public sympathy.
You have changed big time, and I wouldn't say in the positive direction.
Duffy has since made only one other movie, The Boondock Saints 2. Number 3, The Staircase.
To digress a little bit, like Weinstein, how did he get away with what he was doing for so long? You know, it just seemed a bit weird to me that all of a sudden something just snapped, and then everybody started, like, you know, telling their stories about him. Like, the power that he had, maybe, was it really, really strong, and it took one really brave person who, you know, didn't really care about their career anymore to out him? Because he was doing, you know, like, that stuff for like 20, 30 years, wasn't he?
Michael Peterson and his family. The French docuseries Soupçon, better known as The Staircase, was groundbreaking in its intimate coverage of an infamous trial. That of American novelist Michael Peterson for the murder of his wife Kathleen.
And then I can remember, and it must have been very early while I was still in the kitchen, that a cop was on me instantly. Everywhere I went, a policeman was there.
After the show was released, its massive success destroyed any hope of privacy for the grieving family. Peterson's conviction was later overturned, and he eventually accepted an Alford plea for a lesser charge.
So I've never doubted my dad's innocence, but it's just kind of, I don't know, a hard place to be.
This allowed him to maintain his innocence over the crime. Netflix then released an update of The Staircase in 2018, inviting social media hostility on the Petersons. This was further addressed in the 2022 documentary Subject.
It's still hitting me, like, that this is actually happening. Ugh, it's so gross.
Whatever the truth about Kathleen Peterson's death, The Staircase succeeded in turning a family tragedy into a public inquiry. Number 2, The Square.
Man, to get sent to prison for something that you didn't do has got to be one of the worst things that can happen to you. You know you're innocent. You know, your family believes you're innocent, or maybe they believe it, but there's just nothing you can do. Like, your freedom's taken away, you're sitting in a little cell.
Where? Ahmed Hassan. Following the deposition of corrupt President Hosni Mubarak in 2011, Egypt endured years of political and civil unrest.
نزلت الشارع ولما نزلت الشارع لقيت كل اللي حواليا ما يقولوش عني أي حاجة، كلهم زي
Jahan Nujam's The Square explored this gruesome period through the perspective of its own cinematographer, Ahmed Hassan. The filmmaker and democracy activist knew the risks in becoming a public figure of resistance.
أقسمت بالله مش همشي من الميدان ولا همشي من المكان ده إلا ما تتحقق كل حاجة.
While the Egyptian crisis ended in 2014, Hassan wasn't around for this. Instead, he had been exiled from Egypt, fearing retaliation from the authoritarian regime. He also had limited contact with his family out of concern for their safety. The Square may have won Hassan an Emmy for his cinematography, but the project seemingly left him worse off, as he was driven from his homeland.
I mean, if he could go back, would he do it again? I mean, I'm sure he believes what he's doing is right, you know, but it's cost him his home, really. Like, he has to live in somewhat like exile.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. The Jinx, the life and deaths of Robert Durst. Robert Durst. In 1982, real estate heir Robert Durst was investigated for the murder of his wife, Kathleen McCormack.
Would you, for the record, tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury your name? Robert Durst.
He was eventually brought to trial in 2003 for another murder, amidst rumors of a third. Durst refused to do interviews after his acquittal, but was so impressed by All Good Things, a movie based on his bizarre story, that he agreed to sit down with filmmaker Andrew Jarecki.
I mean, this whole time since I've gotten out of prison, I've said nothing to nobody about anything. So people out there have gotten very used to the fact they can say anything you want, because I'm never going to give an interview, so it's never going to be disputed.
The docuseries The Jinx ended with Durst forgetting that he was still mic'd up, seemingly admitting to all 3 murders.
No! No way.
Kill them all, of course.
This may have just been in jest, but Durst was still charged with one of the killings. He was finally convicted in 2021. While true crime documentaries may be accused of consequential biases, it's hard to argue with Durst's self-incrimination.
Oh my God. Wow. That last guy, he pretty much had gotten away with it until he said that. You know, what did he say? What did I do? Killed them all, of course. What did I do? Killed them all, of course. 9 words changed the course of his life, you know, probably for the rest of his life, because he seemed quite an older man at that point. He's probably going to die in prison now. Crazy stuff, man. Like, you've got to be careful, like, what you know, agree to. Like, the Carol Baskin, her complaining about how she was portrayed on Netflix and stuff. She signed the deal. Like, Netflix didn't force her to make the show. They probably offered her a pretty penny. They showed her the episodes before, you know, they gave them the green light to be put on Netflix. She agreed to it. But, you know, she didn't like how the public perceived her, and now she's moaning. But crazy. Do you guys think Carol Baskin had a hand in the death of her husband? Like, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.